last night, and you can't lend a hug. I looked at Uncle Lonnie. A lot of memories started to come back. A lot of fond memories, a lot of fun times that I had with Uncle Lonnie on the farm, working for him when I was growing up. All the laughs we had. I still wasn't sure if I wanted to, say or talk about him. But I woke up a couple times last night laughing. And my wife thought I was a little crazy this morning. I had a memory come to me when I woke up and woke her up because I was laughing about it so hard. And Uncle Lonnie liked to pick at me and share stories about me and make fun of me a little bit. And I figured now it's time I can tell some funny stories on him and make fun of him a little bit. He can't do anything about it. The day I was born, Uncle Lonnie and Aunt Linda were our neighbors growing up down on Fairmount Road. And I guess that was the first 17 years of my life until I left for college. I lived right next to him and Aunt Linda. And on Fairmount Road, if you know where we lived, we were positioned just down the road, down a little bit, so you could hear a lot of what was going on. The echo, you could hear a lot of things that was going on, and it was always interesting to hear what he was doing up there. It was fun to watch him up there working. He would break horses to ride, and I'd hear him out there messing with those horses, and he'd be riding them on a little bit, he'd whip them a little bit, he'd cuss at them, you could hear him cussing at them, and it was interesting to watch him. And I saw him get bucked off a few times, and he's like, oh no, it looks like it fell off up there. So I start to run up there, and then I see him get right back up and get right back on the horse. And he had to be the toughest man I've ever met. He was tough. And so when I was when I got old enough, about 11 or 12, I decided I wanted to help him one day. And he gladly obliged and put me up on the horse. I think the horse had already been broke a little bit, but it was still a little wild. So he puts me up on the horse, and I thought I was doing all right. And he bucked me off and hurt a little bit, but I didn't get back on the horse. So I'll just ride the one. I'll let you take care of the hard part, and I'll ride. I always enjoyed riding horses, but he let me try that out, and I decided I didn't want anything to do with breaking horses. So I went back home and told my dad, and Dad said, you're not helping Lonnie break horses anymore. I learned, like Brother Noel said, Uncle Lonnie loved work. He was a hard-working man, and I learned the value of hard work from Uncle Lonnie. Whether he was at Buffalo Trace, when he wasn't at Buffalo Trace, he was either home at Nanny and Papaw's farm, either breaking horses, working in tobacco, feeding the cows, hauling hay, working in the garden. He was always busy. He didn't let grass grow under his feet, that's for sure. And I remember several times shaking his hand, I could feel his hand and these calluses on his hand. I've never felt hands like that, they're rough. And a lot of times he'd pull my hand up. You got soft hands, son. these are working man's hands. And for a while I thought I wanted working man's hands. But I decided that was too hard. So I went to college instead. Got a nice job. I could wear a suit to work. And I got kind of tired of that after a few years, and decided I wanted to do something outside a little more, something with a little more hands-on. So my wife and I have a furniture business in Indianapolis, and so I move furniture around, and a lot of times I'm putting furniture up on up high in a loft area, and Lydia gets a little worried when I'm up there messing around, and I always remind her, sweetheart, I'm okay, I'll be all right, I'm not gonna fall. I've worked in the top tier tobacco barn growing up, so I'm gonna be all right. But I enjoy the toil that it takes and being hands-on, and knowing Uncle Lonnie, that's the way he preferred it. Living right next to him, I helped him a lot. worked a job, until after college that required going somewhere or working any kind of public work. Anytime I needed a little extra money, I'd go help Uncle Lonnie. He always had something to do, and he always paid. He always paid me fairly. Except for one time, he told me he needed some help cutting tobacco, and he told me to pay me 10 cents a stick or 5 cents a stick if the stick falls over. I didn't think that was very fair, so I didn't really care for cutting tobacco much anyway. I didn't want to spear my hands because I saw the cuts where he speared his hands lots of times. Tobacco juice gets in that cut and it is not fun. So I always preferred hanging tobacco. I was a top tier guy, and I kind of enjoyed that. I wasn't really afraid of heights, luckily, so I wanted to be on the top tier. Uncle Lonnie was always on the wagon or on that middle tier, and then Kaylin was usually working with us too. And Kaylin reminded me, if you were right above Uncle Lonnie, if any of y'all hunt tobacco, you're like this, straddled across the tiers, and Uncle Lonnie if he was under you, you better hurry, because he's gonna, you don't want to wear shorts, or have a stick jobbed up. You don't want to be over Uncle Lonnie unless you're hustling, or he hits your foot. He just hit your foot and you think it'll fall off. I remember he had this horse-drawn wagon. I think he had a few of them over the years, but he had this horse-drawn wagon that was always real cool. I'd see him strapping it up at the house, or up to his house, and he'd come riding down the road. A lot of times he'd stop, and me and Stacy, if we were there, we'd see him. He'd come out and jump in the wagon with him and ride down to Papa's house. A few times he rode, just about every year he rode that wagon through the Bloomfield Tobacco Festival, the parade, and me and Kayla and Stacy always enjoyed the few years that we rode on through there with him, throwing candy out to everybody, and it felt pretty special. I enjoyed that. Brother Noel Wood, Uncle Lonnie was really good with nicknames, and he had a nickname for a whole lot of people. I'll miss a few, but he always called me Joe. For some reason, I don't know where Joe came from. Joe, my man, he'd say. Kaylin, he always called Kaylin Petey. Stacy was Snook, or Snook. I don't like to say it right how he did. Snook.
You're right.
Aunt Sheila was Swartz. He called Uncle Larry Hoots. And the best of all, he called his beloved wife, Aunt Linda, he called her Little Woman. That's the best one, even though I kind of like Schwartz. I always thought that was funny. Uncle Lonnie liked to kid around me and Kaylin and Stacy a lot, and I remember on more than one occasion, he'd walk up behind me and start rubbing the back of my head, and he'd say, "Oh, that's nice hair. You got that kind of hair. Kind of grows on a dog's ass." Hope that was all right. And he always, another thing he did that was fun, or at least funny for other people to see, he'd come up behind me, and Kaylin, he always did it to him too, and I'm not going to do this justice unless I demonstrate it. I still do this to my nephews, but he would come up behind me, whether I knew he was there or not, and he'd get my attention. He'd go, and he wouldn't smack my head. He'd just smack his hand, and it always, it's here. Too automatic. But he always kidded around with us a lot. Rough house, but it's a little bit toughened us up a little bit. I just passed that tradition on to my nephews. That part of Anderson County, very rural area, was about as safe an area as you could find. But at least a few times some really strange things happened. One time, I remember I was at Danny Papple's house, and we heard a commotion outside. It sounded like somebody wrecking their car, glass breaking. And if you know, there's a stretch between Danny Papple's farm and Claire and Larry Waldridge's house. And on one side, there's an embankment there's some trees, but it's a pretty steep drop off. And we heard this car crash, and we come outside and go and walk down there, and a guy had drove his car off the side, and he was, it was kind of dangerous. He was sitting there, his car up against the trees, and he was okay. And we helped him out, and immediately called the ambulance. We helped the guy out of the car, and the ambulance came down, and they're loading him in there, or they got him in there, and we knew that probably a police was going to come check things out, and they were going to tow the car out. And so Uncle Lonnie and I were looking down in the car, and he said, "Joe, get those beer cans out of there." And so I was like, so it was some empty beer cans. So I got the empty ones out, and he saw some others that weren't empty. He said, "Get those other ones out of there." And so I got those. So we cleared the car of beer cans, and so we don't want to, the guy's been hurt, so let's take care of him, and hope we don't get in any trouble. And so later that night, he said, come on up to the house, later on. So later that night, I walked up to the house, and we got rid of the rest of the evidence. in case the police came back before the cop. The police came back, we didn't want to get there. And another interesting thing happened in 1997, and I'd already moved to Lexington at UK, but I got a call about this, and I'd heard about this incident in Anderson County, where I believe it was in Mercer County. A guy had shot his wife. I don't think he killed her, but he was on the run. And they think he was in Anderson County somewhere, on the western side of Anderson County. That's down near where I grew up. And I got a call that he was found at a farm in Anderson County. So I was like, I wonder where that's at. So I get a call, and sure enough, Aunt Sheila had a feeling that he might be in one of the barns on Danny Hubbell's farm. And so Uncle Lonnie and his dog, Barney, walked down to the barn, and Barney got to sniffing around and noticed some things were misplaced, and he walked back up and said, yeah, there's some stuff's misplaced down there. So all of them went down there. Lonnie and Papaw and Nanny and Linda walks down there, and they find, and Uncle Lonnie goes over and lifts it up. Was it Uncle Lonnie that lifted it up? So Barney's over sniffing around some old carpet. And Papaw, if you knew him, he didn't throw anything away. Like, he was a pack rat. He kept everything in those barns. So there's some old carpet over there, and the guy was cold, and the guy was huddled under the carpet, and he immediately put his hands up, and Nanny takes off running to the house and calls 911, and they came and got the guy. But for that bravery, I wanted to read this. Something that both Uncle Lonnie and Papa were very proud of. But on November 24th, 1997, Commonwealth of Kentucky, the state police says, Dear Mr. McGaughey, beginning October 22nd, 1997, the Kentucky State Police engaged in the search for fugitive Mike Graham, who was wanted in a Mercer County crime. Mr. Graham fled into the woods, and for the next 7 days, Kentucky State Police officers searched Spencer and Anderson counties for him. Graham was arrested on October 28th because of your immediate actions after discovering him in your barn. In recognition of the integral role you played in the capture of this dangerous fugitive, it is my pleasure to present to you the enclosed Honorary Colonel Aide-de-Camp Commissioner Staff. This is the highest civilian award given by the Commissioner's Office, and it is reserved for those individuals who distinguish themselves by their assistance and support of this agency. Your assistance was invaluable to us, and we are most appreciative of your efforts. Colonel McGaughey, all Kentucky State Police officers join me in saluting a truly outstanding Kentuckian and in pledging our assistance to you whenever called upon. Sincerely, Gary Rose, Commissioner. that. He was real proud of that. My granddad was real proud of that. Uncle Lonnie suffered from the same hereditary kidney disease that my mom did. She left us way too early back in January of 2021. I miss her every day. It was tough on him, but you know that those dialysis treatments, they didn't slow him down too much. He was as active as he ever was. And Linda told me the day before he passed, he was out there mowing the yard. He loved mowing his yard. I remember he mowed his yard. He or Aunt Linda was there mowing all the time up the road, and their yard looked a whole lot better than ours did. That's for sure. Mainly because I was the one responsible for mowing our yard, so but they always kept the yard looking beautiful. You know how I know Uncle Lonnie's in heaven right now? I'd have to say it's his mama. I don't know how someone could know my grandmother Louise, and for very long anyway, and not come to know God. She was the kindest, sweetest person anybody could ever know, and she exemplified the love of Jesus. And even though Uncle Lonnie could be a bit gruff at times and wasn't always the most emotionally open kind of guy, I'm certain without a doubt he had the joy of the Lord within him. He loved God's creation. He loved his home, he loved his farm. He loved to watch things grow, whether it was a garden filled with plants, a crop of several acres of tobacco, a few horses, or a herd of cattle. That was his passion. Planting, watering something, feeding an animal, watching it grow and develop. He loved the farm, he loved to work, he loved God's creation. And even though he might not have expressed it all that often, I believe he truly loved God, and I can picture him now in heaven, sneaking up behind angels and smacking on the head. I was reminded in recent days that my grandmother's birthstone reads April 30th, 2015. And I was astonished to realize that Uncle Lonnie's will read April 30th, 2025. Exactly 10 years to the day that his mother entered the gates of heaven. That's amazing. 10 years to the day. I don't know how something like that could be a coincidence. He was the only son of Louise and Marshall McGaughey. And 10 years after his earthly mother passed, he entered the gates of heaven to join he and his earthly father and their heavenly Father in their eternal home. We all have the opportunity to join them there also. I'm sure Brother Neil, you'll expand on that a lot more in a few minutes. I'll leave that to you. The last time I saw Uncle Lonnie was a few months after our wedding. Lydia and I got married last April, and I called him and invited him to the wedding. Of course, he had treatment that day and didn't feel like he'd feel up to it, and I understood. But a few months later, we happened to be driving by, and he was outside. And, let's stop in and see Uncle Lonnie and Anna. And I'm sure glad we did. We had a great time. We spent a couple hours with him. He was really excited for me, because after 45 years, I finally found the right woman, and he was glad to see me settle down. And Lydia really, really enjoyed the time with you all being with it. Here you go. Over the years, I had a four-wheeler for a little while, and he had, they had several acres in there, so I enjoyed riding around the farm. And he took Lydia for a ride on the side-by-side, and I think they had a good time. He really enjoyed meeting her. And we laughed a lot that day. And it's times like this, you wish you stopped a few more times. Uncle Lonnie, please say hello and give a huge hug from me to Danny and to Papa and to my sweet mother. We'll see you again sometime soon, and in the meantime, we'll miss you down here.